Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're gonna take a look at one of the biggest upgrades for this season of Go Battle League, Shadow, Alolan Sandslash with Drill Run. Drill Run is just a straight upgrade on Bulldoze because it costs 15 less energy and it does the exact same amount of damage. Taking Alolan Sandslash from kind of an anti-meta pick you would see occasionally to meta pick that is just so strong in the Open Great League and probably in other metas as well. I've chosen to pair it with a really strong Great League team in Medicham and Sableye to try and get the most out of it and see how much it really can do. So let's take a look at it. Spoiler alert, we go on an 11 game win streak. Going into the first game, we lead into a Noctowl. Very good lead for Alolan Sandslash. They swap into Quagsire. We counter swap Medicham. I learned earlier today that Shadow Quagsire can actually flip the 2-shield matchup against Medicham with 1 mudshot's advantage. So maybe swapping in this quick might have been a little bit of a mistake, not knowing whether it was the regular or the Shadow version. Against the regular Quagsire, this is just fine. Against a Swampert, Medicham should also be able to do just fine. So most of the time, this is a pretty good swap. And you also want to swap out quite quickly against the Quagsire. Or maybe we could have stayed in to throw the Ice Punch before dipping into Medicham to just secure switch advantage. Because that is one of the things you need to be aware of with Shadow, Alolan, and Sandslash. You kind of need switch advantage a lot of the time. Because if it lands up against a Shadow Machamp or something like that, it just gets absolutely evaporated. You also need to be very quick on your swaps, because even taking 1 counter or 2 or 3, they just do so much damage to Alolan Sandslash. So swapping out very quickly into Sableye was very nice to not take even 1 counter's worth of the damage. Here we try to go for the CMP type with the foul play. My opponent doesn't throw the Sky Attack yet. And then I should have probably gone for another foul play immediately to put the Noctowl into a range where 1 Ice Punch is enough, because 1 Ice Punch only does about 48%. So at this point I need to throw 2 because the Shadow Claws are not really doing any damage. But the game should still pretty much be over, so I decided to no-shield this just to see how much damage the Shadow Ball does, or to show you guys. And I guess we will never know, because they decided to bait with a Sky Attack. Next game, very, very awkward lead into a Charizard. Against the Shadow Charizard, it's a lot better because the Ice Punch does a lot more damage. And then we can just farm it down after shielding once here. But against the regular Charizard, you do kind of have to make a call or just commit to shielding twice. I decide to make a call, and it is the Dragon Claw. That means we can get to another Ice Punch before they get to a Blast Burn. Alolan Sandslash does outpace just about to 2 Ice Punches before Charizard gets to a Dragon Claw and a Blast Burn. So we do decide to shield up the second one. It is the Blast Burn. And then my opponent swaps into an Azumarill. And I am quite good at making teams that are weak to Azumarill, if you've seen my videos in the past. And this is no exception. Once again, I don't really have a response to Azumarill. They go up to 9 bubbles and throw a Play Rough, meaning they're 2 away from the second one. So I go for the CMP tie-up with the Psychic. And then here I decide to undercharge the Psychic because the Azumarill is switch locked and they're going to expend all of their energy now. So if they take out my Medicham, I can bring in my Sableye as quickly as possible to farm them all the way down without them being able to get to a move. So this is just free energy basically. They do swap out like at last second to a Swampert, but at this point my Sableye just has so much energy. I go for the foul play, it is shielded, and at this point I realize they're 4 mudshots away from the second Hydro Cannon, takes 5 for the first, 4 for the second, and we're 3 away from the return, so we can just shield the Hydro Cannon and get to the return, and this does about, 69% damage to a Swampert, and takes it out. They bring in the Charizard, we take that out as well, and my opponent concedes the match. Next game, nightmare lead into a Medicham. You basically have to try and win switch here, or maybe set up Sableye for a sweep at the end, because if Alolan Sandslash faces off against Medicham, the game is pretty much over. My opponent decides to stay in and go for a pop. I'm not really sure why. Maybe they were expecting the shield. But at this point, they swap into a Lickitung, so we might actually be able to flip switch. And flipping switch, getting Sableye onto Medicham instead of Alolan Sandslash would be absolutely massive. So I do decide to shield up the first Body Slam, and now we can go for the second Psychic. Realizing that we can get to 2 more Psychics here before the Lickitung gets to 2 more Body Slams. So we should be able to flip switch, which is just huge. That is also one of the reasons why I'm not really the biggest fan of Alolan Sandslash. It is very reliant on switch advantage, I feel like, because you just can't have it up against the fighter. But we do get switch advantage. We get Sableye onto the Medicham, and we get Alolan Sandslash onto Bastiodon. This is a good matchup in the 1 shield and the 2 shields, but in the 0 shields, a flamethrower is double super effective. So when you have no shields, yeah, you're just gonna get 1-shots. We do get off 1 Drill Run before we get 1-shot, so that does a lot of damage to the Bastiodon. Now Sableye should be able to handle it, hopefully. We farm up a lot, and I decide to throw in bad timing here, because if you throw in good timing, you might take the smackdown damage. It might apply before you get off the move, and I didn't really want to take that extra damage, knowing that the Medicham would come in. And also a foul play does about 32% damage, whereas a return does about 51%. So when the Medicham is at this health range, you can just go for 1 return. And it almost takes it out, and we go for the Shadow Claw, which does take it out, and that is a good game. Next game, Dream Lead into a Venusaur, and they stay in. Shadow Alolan Sandslash is still a new enough addition to the Great League meta, where people, like, you're still gonna run into some people who are just completely core broken by it. And because they're staying in, I'm thinking that they probably have something else in the back, which is also weak to Alolan Sandslash. So I do decide to just say, if you're gonna shield, I'm also gonna shield. I don't want to go down shield, but I'm okay with just spending the same amount of shields as you do, and then just keeping my Alolan Sandslash healthy, because a Frenzy Plant, although it's resisted, does still do quite a lot of damage. You saw they tried to catch a move on their azumarill, but I waited a turn to not make it happen, and then once again, we don't really have a response to this, but we can just use Medicham to set the azumarill up for like Sableye to farm it down, or maybe Alolan Sandslash to farm it down. They do go for the Hydro Pump, indicating they probably don't have Play Rough, or they don't know how to use super effective moves. I'm betting they probably don't have Play Rough. They also go for a move after 5, meaning it can only be an Ice Beam, and it takes out Medicham. We bring in the Sableye immediately whilst the Azumarill is switch locked, so that we can farm it all the way down because they don't have Play Rough. And again, getting all of this energy on Sableye by only taking 1 Ice Beam is pretty good. You also saw I waited a turn. This is I'm going to explain this in just a second. The Venusaur's one fast move away from the Frenzy Plant, and I know I'm going to lose CMP on both Sableye and Alolan Sandslash, so I wait to make sure that they can't get in that 1 Vine Whip before I get in, before I can get off my move, which is why I don't want to be in the middle of my fast move when they swap, but they still somehow catch me. I made a bit of a misplay there, but my Sableye, because we got that farm down on Azumarill, just has so much energy. Getting those farm downs, like setting up Pokemon to just get energy, like we did with the Azumarill twice now, is just so valuable. Next game, lead into another Dream Lead, Toxapex. Toxapex is so bad against the Alolan Sandslash. They save swap an Obstagoon, which is not really a save swap, so we counter swap Medicham, but I very quickly realized that this is probably one of those Toxapex double counter team, like double dark or something, and when you save swap something like an Obstagoon, it's probably, or it's almost definitely, to try and lure out the counter user. So Toxapex can deal with it, so that whatever they have in the back does not have to see the Medicham. So I am very quickly realizing I want to keep my Medicham alive. I don't want to hard swap my Alolan Sandslash, because it would just get evaporated by the probable counter user, or the counter user that's probably in the back. So I just swap into my third Pokemon, Sableye. They either have to stay in with Toxapex, which is not really a great thing for them to do, or they have to swap into their Scrafty, so I can lure it out, and then I can deal with it with both Sableye and Medicham. We land a return, which does massive damage, and then my Alolan Sandslash can just deal with the Toxapex. They go for a foul play after 12, so they're 1 away from the second one. Takes 7 for the first, 6 for the second. So I try to CMP tie them by the second one. They shield it, and then they try to farm it down, and we simul KO, and my opponent realizes that's game over, and they concede the match. Next game, lead into the mirror match. My opponent actually plays this quite nice. I'm not sure I'm making the correct play here. I catch the first move on Medicham, But here, they go for the Ice Punch, because a lowland sandslash is shielding the move 100% of the time, because a drill run does about 87% damage. You can't no shield in the mirror match. So going for a bait, even though it looks very, very risky because it's double resisted versus super effective, like if they're shielding 100% of the time, it is worth it to go for that bait, although it may seem very, very risky. We catch the move on Medicham, lure out their Medicham, which is pretty nice. Now a lowland sandslash doesn't have to see their Medicham. And here I decide to stop throwing any moves once again to leave their Medicham in farm range. I'm okay taking this Ice Punch. The energy I get from getting this farm down is so much more valuable than the health that the Medicham gets off of my Sableye by throwing that Ice Punch, which is why I stopped tapping with my Medicham to leave it in more farm range. We go for the foul play, snipe with the lowland sandslash. Now they have to shield their Sableye. This was probably a bit unnecessary really, but we save some energy on Sableye. Now they bring in their lowland sandslash. We outpace to the drill run. They're forced to shield this. You could argue I should have gone for the bait. I think that would probably be a little bit too risky at this point. And now they go up to almost the back-to-back. I could go for the CMP tie here. I win most of the CMP ties in the mirror matches, or I can just make sure I overfarm enough so that I come out with a move, forcing their Sableye to throw their energy immediately, because my Sableye has energy as well in the back. So now I come out with a nice punch. Yes, I'm gonna lose CMP to their Sableye. They're gonna take me out, but now they're energy dry, and I should have about 3 Shadow Claws worth of energy on my Sableye, so I should be able to outpace them to this move. So I think instead of going for a risky CMP tie, it would have been a disaster if I lost that CMP. Over farming like that was just a lot safer of a play, in my opinion. Next game, we lead into a Shadow Venusaur Dream lead, and that is a good game. Sorry, that was just a bit fun. Just had to include that. Not because it was a good game or anything. Next game, lead into a Galarian Stunfisk. This is a pretty even matchup, but I do decide to try and catch, because a lot of the time a lowland or a Galarian Stunfisk decides to bait the lowland sandslash after 8 mud shots. So I tried to catch the potential bait on my Medicham. Catching an Earthquake would also have been fine. They swap into Pelipper, and we go for the Psychic right before they go for their Hurricane. I go for the Psychic because they only have 1 shield, meaning they're less likely to expend the shield. And at this point I bring in the lowland sandslash once again, and I decide to no shield this Weather Ball because the Galarian Stunfisk, I don't know why I want it to be a lowland, but the Galarian Stunfisk has so much energy, and it's definitely the Galarian Stunfisk's moves that I want to shield, not the Weather Ball. And I don't want to expend 2 shields, I don't think. They bring back in the Galarian Stunfisk. They should be 1 away from the back-to-back because they found out so much in the beginning. So we go for the drill run immediately. This does quite a lot, but not quite as much as you want it to. We do quite a lot of damage to the Stunfisk, and now we're just going to have to pray that our Sableye can beat whatever they have in the back. They swap into Venusaur. We have to go for the foul play immediately because our fast moves are out of sync. So we get up this first, and now we should be able to also get to the second foul play before they get to their second frenzy plant. But at this point I realize I'm not, like, if I throw the foul play here, there is just no way I'm, they're just going to shield it. So instead, like, if they shield it, then they're just going to win the game because the frenzy plant is going to KO. So instead I go for a very obscure win condition. If I throw 1 more Shadow Claw, I might put the Venusaur into a range where it only has 1 HP. Then I can go for the second foul play on CMP, hoping I win it, because most of the time Venusaur wins CMP. But I just basically have to hope that I can take this Venusaur out. And as I said, if I just throw the foul play immediately, they just shield it. But if it's only at 1 HP and I can win CMP, then I can KO through the shield, because a foul play, or a move, still does 1 HP even if it's shielded. But I did end up losing CMP, so it didn't actually happen. It was a very obscure win condition, but I think it was my only win condition. Next game, lead into a nightmare lead, Deoxys. The way that you should play this, the first time I played this, I just swapped in my Medicham, which is the intuitive thing to do, I think. But you just pretty much have to pray that your Medicham can win this game. A lot of the time, Deoxys leads are weak to Medicham in the back. So a stay in to do a little bit of damage to the deoxys. I should have probably gone for the drill run instead of the ice punch. As I said in the beginning, it's more energy efficient and it is just a better move. Does quite a lot more damage. But you basically just have to hope you can somehow get through the deoxys so that your Medicham can win the game. That is how I feel like you might have a chance to win the game with Medicham in the end. So we go for the second return and the Umbreon just farms us down. I bring in this Alolan Sandslash because, again, I don't want to take any damage on Medicham because I want to win the game with Medicham. Save the Alolan Sandslash for a sack swap later and bring in Medicham, hoping I can get through this deoxys because I'm anticipating that whatever is in the back might be weak enough to Medicham that Medicham can sweep. It is very, very optimistic, and at this point I'm 2 shields down. It is looking very, very grim. Go for the Ice Punch, and Ice Punch does about 17%, so I'm hoping it's enough. They do decide to shield it, and I'm not sure. I don't think it's quite enough from this range, so I don't want to expend the energy, have them live on 1 HP, and then still get off their move. Instead, I would rather keep hold of the energy and have it ready for this Galarian Stunfisk that comes in. It's still looking very bad, but maybe if we can get the catch, throw 3 more counters, and we catch the Earthquake on our 1 HP Alolan Sandslash. We have a lot of energy on Medicham still. Is this actually possible? This would be a ridiculous game to win somehow. Go for the Ice Punch. They're 5 away from the next Earthquake, so we go for the counter down. They only get 4 in. And they should only be a Rock Slide. It doesn't do a lot of damage. We're 1 away from the back-to-back Ice Punch. Throw 1 counter, get up to the back-to-back Ice Punch. Throw the first one. If we lift this counter and get off the second Ice Punch, we do lift the counter. Look at the HP bar on Medicham. 1 HP and a dream, and we overcome a Deoxys defense lead. That was the last battle for today, and overall I think this team is very good. It is inspired by DANCURRY, who used Trevenant instead of Sableye last season to reach number 1 in the world with this team. I think Alolan Sandslash is very good. It does have to be the Shadow. It does, however, struggle a lot because it has to lead into the right things. If you lead into a fighter, the game is so difficult to flip. But if you lead into a mud boy like a Shadow Swampert or a Shadow Quagsire, it's still tough. But if you can dance around with some energy and get a little bit of energy advantage, you can win the 2-shield scenario against these two with only 2 Shadow Claws advantage. You do have to get a little bit of a fast move damage in before landing that devastating move, and you do have to land the Drill Run against the Shadow Quagsire, but it can be done against these two. It's just the fighters that are really difficult to overcome. Other than that, if you like what you see, or you feel like you learned something, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.